All right, so big day. We're here to do a end of career, partially career, interview with Division Chief Paul Roberts. What do you think?
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
It is. It's exciting. 37 years. It's all I've really done outside of the military. So it's super exciting, but it's daunting at the same time. The exciting part is that it's a new chapter in life to discover new things, as you and I have spoken about. But I like it here, and I like the team, and I think the department has probably the greatest and strongest vision that we've had in a very long time, and it's exciting stuff. And so on one hand, you're like, hey, I'd like to stick around and participate and be a part of this. But it's also what I recognize, it's a stop is coming, it's time to get off.
Yeah, shelf life, right? We've all talked about it. We all have shelf lives.
Yep. And we have a great predecessor coming in behind me, Mike Walker, who's going to he's going to take it to the next level, and that's what I want, and that's exciting.
So Paul and I have been reminiscing a lot lately. We were fortunate. We formed a friendship before I came to Boise Fire and before you were on Boise Fire. But some of the things that I've found interesting as we've been discussing, he and I came on together 12 years ago as division chiefs, and we often talk about that was kind of the starting point to, where we're at now and some of the things that we've been working on. And in particular, I want to highlight the special ops changes that you've been a part of this last 3 years. We're finally to that point where we've got our at-large members at a central location. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit and some of the challenges we've had over the last 12 years and why we're doing it.
Yeah, I'd say globally the challenges are change. None of us in the fire service really like change. That's always kind of tough for us to palate. But we've needed to evaluate, and we've needed to execute on some change that has impact to our personnel. And sometimes that impact is uncomfortable because you're changing their world a little bit, but it's necessary. And it gets back to things that we have struggled with for a bulk of our career, and that's special operations having significant impact to the entire organization and what we are able to accomplish or not accomplish in many cases. Special operations training historically has pretty much shut down the whole fire department from being able to do really anything else. And with a lot of trial and error, a lot of communication that we've done, that is really important, and I think that's why where we're at today is we communicated effectively about the necessity of change. And so now today we've got teams that are centrally located, that is reducing the impact to crew continuity elsewhere in the fire department. It's allowing our employees to be more in depth and more knowledgeable in the skills that they have, and that they're immersed in special operations, whether it's tech, hazmat, or swiftwater dive rescue. They're immersed in those things on a regular basis as opposed to once a quarter, which is not really good for our employees. It's not good for our team, and potentially has negative impact as it relates to safety. So we've gone through a lot of trial and error to get where we're at today. And I would say, in fact, just coming from a hazmat team meeting, there was no discussion about a negative impact about centralizing hazmat at 17s and 14s. We're talking about other things and the future with hazmat and going forward, as opposed to all of those problematic things that we've had in the past. So it's really exciting. I think there's more to come. We'll continue, or you all will continue to effectively communicate with those personnel that will be impacted, so that they see the overall greatness in doing that. And by and large, like I said, I think people are very excited. Again, change is tough. That kind of goes with the territory. None of us at this level set out to disrupt people's lives and their fire station home environment, but we do have to think organization and mission first, and think about the other half of the fire department that's not in special operations and how to make their work environment as great as it can be.
That was a big lift, and certainly I appreciate, sometimes we talk about leadership, and sometimes it takes courage to lead, right? Because you're going to make a decision, or you're going to do something that's going to impact the lives of employees, right, of firefighters. But for the good of the mission, it's the right thing to do. And you always have to find that gap. And I think what Brad just alluded to and the way you led through that, stayed the course, knowing there was going to be bumps, it was the right thing. We all knew it was the right thing. I think you guys knew it was the right thing for quite a while. It was just a matter of timing and making it happen. So the courage you showed, the leadership you showed to transition through that, I think is going to have long-lasting effects beyond the next year, 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah, thank you, and I hope so. Really, the intent is to make this organization far more effective and greater as we go forward, particularly in a community that's growing by leaps and bounds. We've got to be on target for what comes next.
One of the things I would compliment you on for your career is I always knew I could go to you, no matter what. And so there's a question behind this, because just in our tenure here at Boise Fire, there were some crazy experiences that we had. And I'm just going to name a few, but what I'd like you to do is maybe take a moment and think, what was the most challenging or unique call you were involved with? And so I'm going to talk about, there was the potential landslide in the neighborhood that we had to mitigate. There is the Cooper Court situation we had to deal with. There was the Mercury. There was countless calls with FBI. There was presidential, I mean, I can go on and on and on. And so things that you and I were privy to, or the special ops role was privy to and involved in, that most of the fire department didn't really know about. So maybe, this is your moment. What was the most unique or special or crazy? Any one of those.
Oh my gosh.
Because there was a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I don't know if any one particular one stands out as uniquely crazy. They all have different aspects of, wow, didn't see that coming, or didn't think I'd be doing that, like a landslide that's going to impact an entire upper end neighborhood, and where you're going to talk to people about, yeah, your home's not going to be here in the next few weeks, right? And what that looks like for them, and what does that look like for our personnel that might have to engage in firefighting activities, technical rescue, or wildfire up in a landslide area? I mean, who would have thought? And so that was unique. The Cooper Court one stands out a lot in that where we're at in the world today with first responders and often communities that are, I don't want to say under tension or tenuous, but certainly, people are a little on edge or different than when I first started in the fire service in '87. And so with Cooper Court, from a management perspective, there was the original plan in which was going to be rather, dare I say, militant, where it was going to kind of conquer that space back and give that back to the community, if you will. And there was a pause in, like, what's going to be the impact to that when we kind of go do that under force, as opposed if we go in there and talk with people, engage with them, find out what their issues are, find out what's important to them, communicate with them up front that, look, we do have to clean this up and you are going to have to move. So let's talk about what movement looks like for you and your things, right? Your possessions that you have here in this tent or in a grocery cart that they had. And that's one of the things where I thought that tactical or even strategic pause was incredibly powerful and beneficial for the community as a whole, in that I think everybody won, right? There was no fighting, which there was some anticipation there was going to be some physical, use of force in that, and that none of that occurred. And it was very passive, it was very polite, very respectful, and we had plans to manage and assist these people after we moved them out of Cooper Court. And when you think about the authority and power that comes with being in law enforcement or fire, we could have picked either one, and we could have gone down that rough route. And instead, we strategically, tactfully paused to that to make it a winnable outcome for everybody. And today, I don't think, and even shortly after that, there was little to no no uproar related to that cleaning up Cooper Court. And it remains rather clean today. It's not returned to its previous character there. So that one stands out, but there's a number of things. We've had different things at the, gosh, I wish I could recall.
Well, I mean, and I think where I was going with all that is I just always knew I had a colleague that could work through these complex issues side by side. I mean, there's no playbook for a lot of what we deal with, and we always laugh about that. And I'm going to add that one to my book at the end that I write. But yeah, that's what I always appreciated about you. It was never, hey, I can't do that. It was never, I don't want to do that. It was, hey, I'm part of a team, and we're gonna figure this out. And then your mantra, of course, became team up, which we all enjoy.
Team up, yeah. Awesome. You know, there's administratively in our day-to-day business, there are things that we evaluate and we say no to, right? But when there's a crisis or an emergency, we don't really have that option. That's not an option for the fire department or public safety to say, no, we don't do that because it's too complex, or we don't know anything about that, right? Who would have thought we'd be dealing with COVID and what's that going to do to the fire department when fire and EMS response has to continue to occur no matter what the rules are about COVID, and really no matter how bad COVID gets. Like if people were dropping dead left and right with COVID, that didn't alleviate us from our responsibility of providing emergency medical service and fire suppression and all the other unique things that we do. Did we curtail some things and pause some things? We certainly did. But we don't get the option to say, I can't do that, I don't want to do that, or I don't know anything about it. What we're challenged with is we're going to take all the information in, and we're going to get key players like our team, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to identify the things that are challenges for us, and we're going to commit to coming to a solution or an end state that's beneficial for everybody. And so that's the unique thing at our level, those challenges. And then we have great employees that then are able to go and execute those things in a very effective and efficient manner. And how we've done that, I think that our history speaks for how this organization and the staff have done that. And it's not just one person. Nothing really happens singularly in this organization, and few organizations that are, work in high risk, low frequency, where people can be terribly hurt or killed. We come together as a team and work effectively as a team and not singularly.
So let me take you all the way back, because you mentioned you started in the fire service in 1987.
1987.
Which made me feel so good, because that's the year I graduated high school. So you made me feel really good about myself there. Appreciate that. But real quickly, what triggered you into the fire service? What made you say that's what I want to start doing? And then we always ask this question throughout that tenure, that course of time from then till now, probably the biggest change you've seen in the fire service that made a difference, that really elevated the service we provide? Well,
I got into the fire service coming out of the military, and I came out of the military for really an evaluation. I was either going to go back into the military and be a career and oddly go into special operations, and that's what I had been talking about the military about, and people coaching and counseling me to that. But I also struggled with the family life. And when you're going to be in that type of environment in the military, and this is my personal opinion, it's not really conducive to a family if you're traveling all over the world and you are committed to that one thing as the greatest priority in your life. And so I said, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to get out of the military, because I could always go back in and see where I land, see what's out there in the civilian world. And so I had gotten out of the military. Obviously, I moved back in with my mom and dad, who lived a little bit in a rural area. And just driving by a fire station, I saw a sign that said "Help Wanted." And I thought, well, that seems kind of interesting. Coming out of the military and, doing those high-speed things, I thought, well, firefighting, that seems kind of like challenging and, risky and, a team environment, which was very accustomed to out of the military. So I thought, I'll go in and try it. And so I went in and made contact, and I would say that relationship with myself and the fire service started to happen very quickly. And it was very short order. I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so started doing whatever I could do, even at my own cost in time or monetarily, to get to where I wanted to be in the fire service. And that was in Ohio, nobody's a full-time firefighter unless you're a paramedic. So where I was working told me as a part-time employee, if you're going to be full-time here, you got to be a paramedic. And so I was laser focused at achieving that. And I did that. What has been the most impacting thing in the fire service as we go forward? There's a lot of things, but if I probably narrowed it down to one, go back to 87, it was very much male dominated, and so male dominated that there was not a lot of opportunities for women. And early on in my career, I worked with a female employee who was very capable of doing the job. And so I quickly learned that, that really wasn't a factor. Are there physical differences? There certainly are. I think men, just by the nature, have upper body strength and can easily or more easily achieve some of those things. And I think women have to more physically attack that upper body strength. But when I look at where we were in 87 and the character of the fire service, at least in the organizations I was a part of, and what women were doing, primarily EMS, you wouldn't see them necessarily on an engine, rare if you saw that. And where we're at today in Boise Fire Department, when I came on, we had one female employee, Connie, and now we have many, I don't even know what the count is, but over a dozen now of women firefighters. And at least a few of them are moving very effectively and efficiently through the organization, to probably one of them being one of our first battalion chiefs. So if I think about that, I think about the makeup of the fire service. It's then the women being in the fire service. We do lag, I think, behind law enforcement, where you go to law enforcement, BPD, many other, lots of women. We're not there yet in the fire service, but I think we're certainly advertising our career to more women than we've ever done before. At least this organization is. And so, I think about that. There's the change from analog communication to digital communication. There's the change from when I started, we wrote everything down on a piece of paper. And if I wasn't really clear on where we were going, I pulled out a 3-ring binder and it said, take these 3 streets to get to the main street that you're getting to, right? And now everything's electronic, and we're highly electronic dominant. I think land mobile radio will always be our primary mechanism of communication, or a form of that, but very quickly right behind it is data. Our desire for intelligence is greater today than it's ever been. I remember we got a cell phone, and like the chief had to have the cell phone. He was only the one that got the cell phone. And now we go across the organization, we got so many cell phones, I can't count them all. Yeah. The change from analog to digital had great impact to the fire service, and fortunately the fire service was laser focused at addressing some of the safety issues with intelligibility in that, and I was fortunate enough to participate in that. And I think those are big payoffs, in that we don't really know how important it was to work through that analog digital change without having a firefighter fatality that was directly attributable to that inability to effectively communicate.
This is the rest of the story. That's how Paul and I met originally. I was on a special assignment to the fire center tackling this very issue, the P25 compliance. And Paul, somehow, because of his connections and a few different avenues that were sent his way. I don't know, even, it's just so comical how it all worked, but once my special detail ended, it all got turned over to Paul. And then Paul, in true firefighter sense, was speaking at a conference or speaking as a subject matter expert, and he became the man. And here we are all this time later. So it was such a fascinating story.
Yeah, and a great, a unique opportunity. And the fire service gave me that opportunity, right? That wouldn't have happened just independently of me. The fire service gave me that unique opportunity. And there are a lot of people, this organization, the fire service, International Association of Fire Chiefs, the Public Safety Communications Research out of Boulder gave me the opportunity to speak, lead, chair a couple of committees, and that was really interesting. But a funny story is when we were going through the analog, or from the digital to analog, the fire ground noises came up, and we had one of the vice presidents of one of the major radio manufacturers ask about putting mufflers on chainsaws.
Chainsaws, I remember
Which
that.
chainsaw was that's a lot of noise, right? And that really wasn't anything that I challenged the radio manufacturers to address, but some of my colleagues did. And so one of the vice presidents of major radio manufacturers said, well, can't you put a muffler on that chainsaw? And I think that's kind of how maybe the dominoes fell for me, is that then I kind of challenged that and said, well, that's the problem. That's the very problem that we have in the community of first responders, which includes the manufacturers, is that we're not connected. You don't know anything about what we're doing, and you really don't know what a poor, I think I used different words, but what a poor statement you just made about putting a muffler on a chainsaw. We are disconnected. And if we're going to solve this problem, we have to connect. And so that was probably the biggest domino that fell, that propelled me into the different things of technology development, and what do the users need? What does the fire service need out there? And then as we look into those needs, make sure that technology is adopted or developed in a manner that works in our environment. Like, I remember talking to vendors, and you talk to them about interior firefighting and wearing a mask and leather gloves, and they're like, we didn't make that for wearing leather gloves. Well, then we're going to have to, right? And it was, you'd think it'd be obvious you'd address those things, but there was quite a disconnect at that time. And today, that I think there's a lot of fabrication, and I really attribute that to the fire service, the law enforcement community, and really the pillar pieces that is public safety communications research out of the Department of Commerce, with funding from Commerce and Homeland Security, to really bring the developers and the users, police, fire, and EMS, together in a room, and let's have a discussion, in some cases maybe debate what we need and how it gets developed, so that the end product and that manufacturer's investment actually meets the user requirements.
2 questions. You can ask the next one, but this one is backwards. What won't you miss from the career or the fire service, or what won't you miss when you're in retirement?
I won't miss being on call as duty chief. And as important as that is, it takes you out of your typical time off schedule, if you will. You have to be tentative to what's going on, and you have to be willing to engage and participate in whatever's going on. And I won't miss that piece. And that sounds funny, but it's a burden. It's a worthy and important burden, but it does have an impact. I won't miss that.
Being released from minimum security prison.
Yes, exactly. But most things I will miss. Yeah. And yeah.
Well, I'll wait on the next question then. I want to go back to the comms piece, right? I can guarantee you probably 98, maybe even 99% of our fire department has no clue your role in communications in the fire service, and quite honestly, public safety nationwide. You were back with AT&T before it was FirstNet, before it was any of that, building foundation of what this should look like. And my mentor, Jeff Johnson, talks about it all the time. And Paul is a big deal. He always says that. Paul's a big, big deal. And I just want to say thank you for all the work you did for that, because you helped build today's communications. You were part of that group, right? Chris Lombard and others that you engaged with. that most of our folks, maybe hopefully the folks watching the video later will realize, holy smokes, I didn't know. I just thought Paul played with radios, right? Well, no, Paul's done a lot with communications, so really appreciate that work you've done. I know there's probably some things later on as you move into the next phase of your life that you'll probably be involved with. You and I have talked about that. So what are you going to miss?
Yeah, I'm going to miss the team.
Yeah.
You know, I'll miss the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a.
And that, when I say the team, that's you all. That's the organization. Yeah. The inclusion, right? We do, as a fire service, incredible things, as we've talked about earlier, and that's important work.
Yeah.
And my life has been centric to that.
Well, but you're just like I tell everybody, you're always part of the family. Yeah. And, you know, there's been moments where I've had to re-engage with retirees and make sure that they understand this doesn't end. What you're saying, and you've told me this, is you'll miss having you have to be outside of the caution tape now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
okay.
Yep, we've talked about that. I equate it to today, any one of us walk up to that yellow barrier tape and lift it up and walk under, and there's one of our colleagues at whatever rank is ready to greet us, ready to brief us on what's going on, or even ask us a question as far as guidance. And on the 24th, now I stop at the barrier tape. Yeah. And that would be very different, right? Certainly there'll be cordial people that say, come on, hey, but you will stop at that barrier tape and pause for a second. And yeah.
Well, Team Up will live on. We know that. Yeah. We know we're going to see you around because I don't think you're done with anything in the fire service yet, which is good. What's retirement? You and I chatted a little bit over lunch the other day. What's the thing you're looking forward to? Outside of the work stuff, but what are you looking forward to now?
Getting out in my toy hauler and side-by-side and venturing out and doing a little bit more, venturing out. That piece will be nice. I think whatever this next chapter with employment for me is going to be, I hope, pretty exciting in traveling around and filling gaps in disaster areas. I think will be quite exciting if that's where I end up or land or go. Those things are going to be exciting, but really just a whole, like I said, this is what I know. I wake up and I put this uniform. It's dictated to us. I'm going to be able to put on in the morning, unless another employer tells me you wear this, right? I'm going to be able to put on whatever I want to put on for the day. And if I want to grow a little bit of a beard, I'll be able to do that. So I would say a little bit more freedom, right? In that when you commit to the public safety, police, fire, and EMS, the military, you do give up a little bit of freedom. We are, at this level particularly, I'm always part of the fire service. It doesn't matter if I'm not in uniform. My neighbors know I'm part of the fire service. So if I'm out in my front yard acting like an idiot, that has impact to the fire service. So after the 24th, I'll be able to act like an idiot in my front yard, right? No, in serious. Now, I'll have a little bit of freedom in that you don't feel like you're under the microscope. Not that I'm going to go out and do crazy things, but you are always a participant in the profession, and I'm protective of that, and it means something to me. And so I'm always kind of postured that I represent the fire service and the city of Boise and the communities around us, because often the community doesn't know any different. And just like today at lunch, some folks thought I was the police department, right? And so I won't have that anymore, and that will be a little bit of a relief.
So we'll wrap this up. First of all, thank you for your service. It's been awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I would echo Brad, you've been an awesome team player. You've always been mission first, which I love. I mean, that probably the military background, right? It's all about the mission. What we do, it's not about me. And so I really appreciate that. So as we wrap it up, we've got all these new generations. Your son's in public safety now. You got a whole new generation looking to join us. What advice would you give them?
At 37 years, I got a couple of bullet points, and some have really come to me in really the last several weeks as I start to, get to this point. One, as many of us know, and maybe the young generation doesn't know, life's not fair, and it will deal you cards that you're not always prepared for. Secondly, take notes of your journey in the fire service because it will go by so fast. Take notes, write a journal. Write a journal about the day-to-day business. Write a journal about some interesting calls. Write a lot about the fun times and the humorous and some of the things that we do as a family, jabbing and horsing around with one another. Because if you did that over a course of 20 or 30 years, you could probably sell that book and make money. And if nothing else, it will be huge for yourself and your family to look back on and read some of that stuff. There's a number of businesses that write books for people. I know some folks that they have paid that for their father to write a book, and it's quite unique and funny. For those of us that are moving through the ranks, and captain, battalion chief, and division chief, and particularly for battalion and division chief, is recognize that I learned this even today, where I'm at today, is tolerance. And that, and Brad and I just spoke about this, I was speaking with some other folks a couple of days ago, is that the guy that drove the engine out of the rig room with the compartment door and did all that damage, he didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. And when you've been at the job for 20 or 30 years, you go, what in the hell? How in the hell does that happen? This is the 12th time this has happened. But what you have to understand is we're a revolving profession. We have people coming and we have people going. And the people that coming are going to make human mistakes, like leaving the compartment door open and pulling out. And dare I say, they're entitled to those mistakes. And from a manager's perspective, you kind of have to take a pause and recognize that they're human beings and they're going to make mistakes. And if that's the worst thing that happens all day, it's a good day. We can recover from that. We can buy new compartment doors. We always have and we always will. But just recognition that, again, as a senior executive officer, these mistakes seem routine and they're happening over and over again, but that's only because we've been here for a long time and we've been doing it. But for the guy that's been on the job for 1 or 2 years, that's the first time. And, they're going to make some mistakes. And that happens. And try not to lose, as a battalion chief or division chief, try not to lose sleep over that. We'll fix it. And we'll recover from it in very short order, as opposed to a sentinel mistake that has great consequences. We don't want those to occur. And we don't want somebody to drive through the building with a compartment door open. We don't want that to happen, but it does happen and it will happen, and those will continue to happen. Let's just not make big ones that we can't recover from. And I tell my son Devin that, and my daughter, you can go through life and you're entitled to make mistakes, and your dad has done some dumb things in his life. Just don't do something you can't get out from under.
Yeah. Good advice. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, that dictates your career, that you can do that or you can't do that.
Well, thanks for sitting out with us. This is awesome. We've been doing these exit interviews, and they've been really fun to do and just capture a moment in time in the history. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.